All right, welcome everyone to another episode of my weird little podcast. Yay!
Yay.
Hi, I'm Tia. I'm here all the time. Today we have Teresa coming at us from
Hello.
California for now.
Yep.
For
Oops. For now. Yeah.
now, for now, until we're recording in person, hopefully in the future.
Mm.
Um, but yeah. What are you drinking, Teresa?
Me?
I don't know why I
Today,
shouted that. I don't know why I'm yelling.
you're fine. I like the enthusiasm. It's Saturday night. We should
It is,
celebrate
it is Saturday.
Saturday night.
Is this
I'm
cool how I spend my Saturday nights, or is this lame how I spend my Saturday nights?
Well, considering I'm on here with you, I think it's fucking cool.
Okay,
But,
cool. All right. Good.
and you should trust my opinion and judgment. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But I'm drinking once again my favorite Cutwater. This is the strawberry margarita. It's um compared to the ones I usually drink, it's a little bit lower percentage in alcohol, but that's only
Mm,
because I was frustrated by this, but I'm over it since yesterday. I went to Bevmo, which is supposed to have, obviously a wide selection of
yeah.
beverages and whatnot. And they usually have a really good selection of Cutwaters, but this time, for whatever reason, they did not. And so I was struggling to pick out of, some that I was not really interested in. So anyway,
Mm,
I wound up with this one. It's not bad. It's just a little on the light side for
yeah.
me, honestly. It's still good though. It's 10%, which, should feel like a lot, but like I said, I think for me I'd need like an extra shot of tequila in here and then it would do it. But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
still good anyway. Very good. So yeah.
I'm a big fan of the Buzzball because not only
Mm.
are they woman owned, I find it fascinating that they make it out of orange wine. They make all
Oh,
these
right.
different drinks and it's all orange wine. Uh,
Hmm.
they like make a mudslide and like pina colada, but it's all orange wine and it's like really shelf stable too, which is really weird. Um,
Hmm.
but it has the most alcohol of anything you can get at 7-Eleven. It's like 15 to 17% alcohol, which
Right.
is very buzzy.
Not bad.
But yeah, but
Yeah.
no, I went to Lee's Discount Liquor the other day, which is like a cultural institution here in Las Vegas.
Hmm.
Lee's Discount Liquor is like I thought it was like hot shit. And I went and I must say I was really impressed by like the amount of stuff that they have. And I was like kind of overwhelmed. But I went specifically to get chartreuse. Um,
Oh, yeah.
because chartreuse is my favorite color, second only to pink, which is my other favorite color. Although I'm like right now I'm like kind of in this like blue vibe, and I usually don't like blue, but I don't know, I'm like feeling it. Blue is the vibe, not the mood. I've actually been pleasant for the most part. um,
That's
uh,
good.
but I wanted chartreuse. So I follow this guy on TikTok as like the drink maker guide or something. I don't know. If you're following me on TikTok, you could probably find him on TikTok, like drink
Mm.
maker's guide or something like that. Um,
Okay.
and he made this cocktail out of chartreuse because I asked him, and it was like the first time one of the guys I follow on TikTok, responded to me, and I felt seen.
Nice.
And I was like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
go make this cocktail, and then I'm gonna do a duet, of his TikTok of me doing this cocktail, with me, and like my hair was chartreuse at the time. I had this whole idea, and they didn't have chartreuse there, so
Oh.
uh yeah. But yeah, that was a long story. Anyways, I'm drinking good old Charles Shaw
Oh,
Merlot
yeah.
out of a coffee mug. So
Nice.
yeah,
It's not even $2 anymore, right? It's probably
it's
what? Is
like
it $4 by now?
275
Oh,
maybe.
okay. It's still not okay. That's not bad.
I mean, it's less than $5. I could tell you that.
There we go. That
Oh,
works.
um, yeah. Uh, I I used to drink it a lot. I remember one time I bought several cases of it for an event. I don't know if you remember that, and I had like tons of it at my house.
Maybe.
Yeah. It was for like one
Uh,
of our seances that we were
Okay.
throwing.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
bought like tons of cases of it, and nobody drank at the seance at all. Um, and
Oh,
so it had all
well,
this leftover alcohol, and Pat was like, "We wasted all this money." I was like, "I spent $100, and it was like um several cases of it. Like it wasn't like that expensive."
wow.
But I was like, you're acting like we're not gonna drink it. And like we went
Mm.
through it. We got through it. So, you know,
Yeah.
that saved me from buying something more expensive when I really was just drinking to fall asleep. So, you know,
Sometimes it's just a little nightcap for you.
yeah.
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 Okay. Well, would you like me to share with you what I'm going to be talking about tonight?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Okay. So hopefully, hopefully we have not um, done this topic before. I don't want to do doubles, but I didn't take the time to do our own research and see if we had talked about this before.
Mm.
But have we ever talked about Edward Mordrake or
Oh,
Mordrake?
I know who that is, but no, we have
Yeah.
not.
Yes.
We have not talked about him at all, and that is like that's real. Yes. Oh, I'm so excited.
Sweet. Sweet. Yeah. You know who he is. Yeah.
Yes.
I knew you would know the name. I mean, most people that are listening to our podcast or others similar would probably know the name. And by the way, he does go by either name, Mordrake or Mordake. But for me, I found it harder to keep saying Mordake over and over.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with Mordrake. Honestly,
Mm.
I think it sounds nicer anyway.
Yeah.
So it sounds fancier. But and that's what I want to go with. But the first time I ever heard the name Edward Mordrake was, of course, as most of us maybe heard it, because I thought I knew a lot of lore and legends up until then, but I had never heard of Edward Mordrake until the fourth season of American Horror Story,
Mm.
Freak Show, when he made a guest appearance, I guess you could call it,
Hmm.
in the cast for a couple of episodes. So that was the very first time I heard the name. And to be honest, I didn't think much of it after the episode either. I was just like, okay. But then when I looked it up, finally, I was just thinking of it kind of randomly, which is why I landed on him and thinking about his alleged life. Um, the legend that he has is very intriguing, but honestly, on American Horror Story, I felt they wrote um, his legend even on there is it was kind of weakly
Mm.
written. Um, it
I
wasn't,
honestly like felt
yeah,
that way about a lot of the characters for American
yeah,
Horror Story. Like
yeah, just in general, right? Yeah,
several times I was like super excited that they were going to cover something or someone would show up, and I'd get really excited because I knew the story, and then it was kind of like fizzled out, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
several times. But that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it happens. That
Yeah.
happens sometimes, but the real legend of Edward Mordrake is definitely more compelling. And it's even led to me finding out more about rare but real medical conditions that could and do occur. And those things in and of itself, um, it's not something that you like to dwell on too often because it can
Mhm.
definitely, turn into, obsessing, I guess, about an oddity. But I mean, I thought it was very cool to find out this new medical information that was actually based in reality too. So Looking at this research for Mordrake turned me on to a bunch of real conditions that, I'm going to share some of this information a little bit later because I just found it fascinating. But so it really left me wondering two questions. Did Edward Mordrake have any basis in reality as an actual historical living person? That was number one. And number two, why does his legacy as a legend endure more than others? So I'll get into that in a little bit.
Okay.
But let's start out with, who was Edward Mordrake? Well, he was said to have been a young man born in the 19th century and an heir to an English peerage, or in other words, he was an English nobleman, or he was going to be an English nobleman when he reached a certain age. Mordrake was born with a face at the back of his head that tormented him. So the second face was said to have been female, actually, and a
Ooh,
terror to live with. Yeah.
I had not heard that. I heard like about the head and the back of his head and that like he believed
Mhm.
that it would speak to him, but I didn't know it was a woman. I just always assumed it was like a twin or something. But I guess you could have a female twin, you
I
know.
mean, potentially, probably in all actuality, that could not have happened. But yeah, but no, that's what the second face was said to have been female, according to a lot of accounts. So yeah, that in and of itself is very strange as well. Um, but some of the way that the face is described, she's described as having a pair of eyes and a mouth that drooled. She could not see, eat, or speak, but the face could whisper, laugh, and cry.
Oh.
So, yeah, if you're painting a picture in your head, yeah, it's pretty bizarre to say the least.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are all the qualities that the face was said to possess. So a couple of quotes that I can share with you are that the face would sneer while Mordrake was happy. So I guess if Edward was generally in a good mood, the face just wasn't having it.
Mm,
And it would also, quote, smile while Mordrake was weeping.
mm,
So kind of the opposite, I guess, emotion to whatever he
yeah.
was feeling, according to these accounts. So, already I'm starting to think, and I'm sorry, I kept trying as hard as I could to not keep making the association, even because I knew it was another work of fiction, but I could not stop thinking about Professor Quirrell in Harry Potter in the
Oh
first
yeah, yeah, yeah.
book with Voldemort in the back of his head.
Definitely, they definitely drew inspiration, from that.
Yeah,
They
I
had
felt
to
like
have.
it was. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I'm like, oh, it's just like that time when Voldemort was in the back of
Yeah.
Professor Quirrell's head. So
Yeah.
yeah, I couldn't stop making the association. Then I kept trying to tell myself, don't make that one. But for, I guess, a lot of reasons, but I don't know. I'm not trying to open up any debates or anything, but honestly, I still
Yeah.
love the story of Harry Potter very much, despite any things that have gone on. So
Mm.
try to stay like more neutral about it, but just to put that out there anyway.
Mm.
Um, I don't really want to do a cancel culture type thing, so um, not interested. Um, but let's get back to Edward Mordrake, who we're actually talking about. So it's very interesting as the description goes further into his face. His forward facing face was said to be very similar to that of Antaeus. And so if you've never heard of Antaeus, well, he was a very handsome Greek youth that lived during the early Roman Empire.
Mm.
And he was eventually deified. So he was turned into a god, had a god status by one of the emperors that was one of his lovers. But he was deified and he was actually worshipped as a god and also as a hero.
Mm.
But if you really want to reduce everything down, he was kind of known as a pretty boy.
Mm.
So that is what, according to these accounts, the forward-facing face of Edward Mordrake was said to look like. So very handsome, in other words. But Mordrake himself apparently referred to his second face as his demon face.
Mm.
And every time he went to the doctors, he urgently begged them to remove the face. Why? Well, as I said before, the face, according to him, the second face was tormenting him. But like, I already said that it couldn't speak, according to him, but somehow it spoke to Edward at night, apparently, he said, was when it whispered things that, quote, one would only speak about in hell.
Ugh.
So, not really sure what the face was saying to him. Unfortunately, I wasn't
Yeah.
able to find any accounts of what this demon face might have said to him. He only just kept describing that it was like the worst kind of verbal torture that he could
Yeah.
possibly receive. Um, and there were no doctors, unfortunately, according to him, that
Yeah.
wanted to attempt the removal. So, therefore, all of this anguish and suffering during many years caused him to want to commit suicide. So, according to accounts, that's what he did at the age of 22. Um, he just could not live with the demon face and
Yeah.
everything that was happening to him at that point.
That's really
Um,
sad.
so yeah, it's sad. It's very sad. But did it really happen? I don't know.
Hmm. I'm looking up
Was
photos
Edward?
of Edward Mordrake right now, or
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote
Yeah,
who he was. I know they only have like the waxed figure rendition of him.
exactly. I was gonna.
All right.
They have
Sorry.
that one, and they actually have that one. Oh, go ahead.
I'm
Oh,
jumping
you want me to
ahead. I'm
continue?
ruining
No.
your story. Go ahead.
You're fine. No, you're fine. I will get to that. But yes,
Okay. Okay.
was was he a real person? Well, the 1896 Medical Encyclopedia, Anomalies and Curiosities of Medicine, seemed to think so because there were two doctors, one named Dr. George M. Gould and another Dr. David L. Pyle. They co-wrote this encyclopedia together in 1896 here in the United States. And they included this account of Edward Mordrake. So as I was saying, was Edward Mordrake a real person? Well, this is what the 1896 Medical Encyclopedia, Anomalies and Curiosities of Medicine had to say. It's a little snippet and an account of Edward Mordrake's story.
Hmm.
So here we go. One of the weirdest, as well as the most melancholy stories of human deformity is that of Edward Mordrake, said to have been heir to one of the noblest peerages in England. He never claimed the title, however, and committed suicide in his 22nd year. He lived his life in complete seclusion, refusing the visits even of members of his own family. He was a young man of fine attainments, a profound scholar, and a musician of rare ability. His figure was remarkable for its grace, and his face, that is to say, his natural face, was that of an antinist. But upon the back of his head was another face, that of a beautiful girl, lovely as a dream, hideous as a devil. The female face was a mere mask, occupying only a small portion of the posterior part of that skull, yet exhibiting every sign of intelligence. Of a malignant sort, however. It would be seen to smile and sneer while Mordrake was weeping. The eyes would follow the movements of the spectator, and the lips would gibber without ceasing. No voice was audible, but Mordrake avers that he was kept from his rest at night by the hateful whispers of his devil twin, as he called it, which never sleeps, but talks to me forever of such things as only they speak of in hell. No imagination can conceive of the dreadful temptations it sets before me. For some unforgiven wickedness of my forefathers, I am knit to this fiend, for a fiend it surely is. I beg and beseech you to crush it out of human semblance, even if I die for it. Such were the words of the hapless Mordrake to Manvers and Treadwell, his physicians. In spite of careful watching, he managed to procure poison, whereof he died, leaving a letter requesting that the demon face might be destroyed before his burial, lest it continues its dreadful whisperings in my grave. At his own request, he was interred in a waste place, without stone or legend to mark his grave.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was just part of the article. Or I'm sorry, I should say, yeah, no, it was an article. That was part of the article that was in that encyclopedia.
Mm-hmm.
So you would seem to think that, well, it might have some place in
Mm-hmm.
actual um, medicine and science, but that might not really be the case, unfortunately, um, because I'm about to get into it here. Um, they only described his basic condition, which would what it would look like essentially. They they never provided any medical diagnosis for what the deformity was. And the article was also credited to a lay source. So the doctors didn't even bother to really um, look into this and find out if it was true or not. And worst of all, this account was copied directly from a very dubious article, which was written just a year before. So in 1895, a writer named Charles Lowton Hildreth wrote an article for the Boston Post. And the article was titled, this is very long, let me get through it. The article is titled The Wonders of Modern Science. Some half-human monsters, once thought to be of the devil's brood. And then kind of underneath that, it said, marvels almost beyond belief. Their existence was attested by evidence satisfactory to the committees of the Royal Scientific Society. So that's kind of a lot. And you can actually look up the article if you're interested. I was amazed to see it in print just because it's kind of, well, it's really remarkable, now to
Mm-hmm.
read something from long ago like that. But, it just makes it more real when you can see the actual type print
Yeah.
and everything. So if anyone out there is interested, look up the article, The Wonders of Modern Science, the Boston Post, 1895, and you can look at it yourself. But the reason that it was going to be so problematic is because for a couple of reasons. But you can see that Edward Mordrake is portrayed in the article in as, a cartoon, as, all the creatures or half creature, half people, I guess, in the
Mhm.
article were. Um, but under his picture, it says Mordrake and his devil twin was the caption. So the big thing about the article in the Boston Post was that this guy Hildreth details different accounts of, quote, human freaks, as he refers to these people in this article, including the fish woman of Lincoln, a woman who had the a woman who had the tail of a fish. So, in other words, a mermaid for all
Yeah.
intents and purposes, honestly. I guess maybe back then in 1895, they weren't talking about mermaids in that way,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Yeah.
Even though I think I mean, was the Fiji mermaid around by then? I don't know.
I don't
That may
know.
have been later. That was
Yeah,
later, I
that's
think.
Fiji mermaid. Mermaids in general, I'm definitely doing an episode on
Yeah.
in the future. I've
Okay.
been talking about it for several episodes now. So I
Okay.
guess we'll find out. We'll find out.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So she was one of the people, human freaks.
Mhm.
And I like how he says human freaks as opposed to other freaks.
Mm.
Um, then he also in this article included the quote Norfolk spider, unquote. And that was a man with a body of a spider. So, and if you look at the illustration, it's a man's head, yeah, basically just plopped down onto a spider's body.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
um,
Yeah.
so that was another one of the creatures he wanted to include. And then simply a man who was half human and half crab.
Mm.
So I guess if you're looking to, this was obviously inspiration for American Horror Story that season. They looked to this article. They must have,
Yeah.
because they didn't call in the 1895 article. They did not call him Lobster Boy, but in American Horror Story they did.
Well,
Um,
actually, he's based off of a man named Grady, and his story is
oh, okay,
super fucked up.
okay, never
Uh,
mind.
yeah. But no, I could see where you would get the link there. But Grady might have gotten his name from that lobster boy
Oh, okay,
crab guy.
okay.
Uh, but yeah, that's a whole nother story to get into. That guy was a piece of work. But yeah, continue.
Um, okay, so in this article, he claimed that he found these cases described in old reports of something called the Royal Scientific Society. Well, the problem with that is that number one, there was an article kind of recently, actually, within the last 10 years in USA Today that fact checked and the only known Royal Scientific Society um, that existed didn't exist until 1970.
Ugh.
And we're still talking about the early, not even the 1900s yet, right at
Yeah.
the turn of the century. So it did not exist until 1970. And when that society did exist, it was founded by Jordanian monarchs. So it's not even, something that's related to what um, this person, Charles Hildreth, claimed that it was connected to.
Yeah.
So that's problem number one. There was a legitimate Royal Society of London, but that was examined and there was nothing found in those records at all
Mm.
that pertained to anything that Hildreth wrote about in the article. And problem number two, Charles Lowton Hildreth is discovered to be both a poet and a science fiction writer.
Mm.
So he wrote this article for the Boston Post in
Yeah.
1895, but in 2015, there's a website called Museum of Hoaxes, and the person that is one of its historians or its main historian, his name is Alex Bose. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I apologize. But he reported that these stories were identical. So the story from 1895 in the Boston Post, and also the article that was supposed to be, respected scientifically, medically in the 1896 medical encyclopedia written by the two doctors, the doctors just basically copied and pasted the article from the year before in the Boston Post into their book. So I was just like, what? Why would they do this? Um, so yeah, getting back for a second to Charles Lowton Hildreth, it's believed that he wrote this article simply to increase reader interest in the Boston Post. And that was a thing that was happening at that time, unfortunately. In the 1890s in the USA specifically, yellow journalism was a very common practice at the time.
Mm.
So, nothing was checked, nothing was sourced, everything was pretty much believed. If you put it in print, okay, it might as well be true, right? So,
Yeah.
um, so that was unfortunately something that these two doctors fell prey to. They were kind of taken in, I think, by the whole thing as well, because I really struggled with that. I was like, well, of course, I am willing to believe things that others don't believe, obviously. But uh, when it came to, two doctors, because doctors are usually so skeptical and try to, research everything. But I guess, the only thing I could come up with in 1895 is that they were just as gullible as everyone else and, wanted to take in um, this story and, maybe they had a specific reason why they wanted to believe it, but they definitely had no regard for the source material. Because, citing a layperson as the source, why would you, as a doctor, why would you sort a layperson as a source of your um, research? But I don't know. That's something that happened. And similar things still happen today. So don't believe everything that you read, even in a medical encyclopedia, I guess, is
Yeah, right.
perhaps the moral of the story. But yeah, they were said to be eye doctors as well, ophthalmologists. So I don't know. Seems kind of ironic that they were kind of blind to the fact that they may not have checked everything. But
Mm.
so, I guess the short answer about was he actually a person? Did he actually exist? The short answer is no, he was not likely to have been a real person, as there has been no recorded evidence of his condition or that he even truly historically existed. All right, so I was about to get into some of the other um, rare but true medical conditions and occurrences that I didn't know existed. Um, and Edward Mordrake is he's kind of a combination of three different birth defects. Um, the first would be some kind of extreme form of um, being a parasitic twin.
Mm.
So basically, for a very basic description of that, um, he would be an unequal but conjoined twin. Also, there's a couple more um, disorders that could possibly be happening. I'm sorry, I nerded out on this because I found it completely interesting. I was like, wow,
No, that's
is
fine.
really
Yeah.
this is really crazy. And it got me to know some new medical terms, which I probably won't pronounce correctly, some of them, but I'll try. Um, uh, Craniopagus parasiticus. That's the big one. So that is when a parasitic twin that I just talked about very basically is an unequal conjoined twin.
Yeah.
Um, that parasitic twin head has joined with an undeveloped body. So basically, it's like imagine yourself, but with a head growing out of you. Um, yeah, like somewhere on your body, probably at the top of your head, which is how it's most often seen. So
Yeah.
you would have another head that is your parasitic twin, but with no body growing out of your head.
Yeah.
If you can imagine that,
I
this
mean,
actually exists.
so it is possible that
Yes.
this condition, he could have been a real person. It is possible,
Yes,
but
it is possible. It's not very likely just because I said, unfortunately, all of the
yeah.
research, it doesn't point to any um, either physical or historic evidence. But
Hmm.
yes, it is absolutely 100% possible that this could happen
Yeah.
in real life. So that alone was enough to just give me pause and make me be like, wow, that's just
Yeah.
I mean, life is, what do they say? It's stranger than fiction, right? So yeah. That was some of these things. I mean, if you really like, if you're not thinking about it every day and then you stop to think about it, it's like, well, oh my God,
Yeah.
okay. That could happen. This is a real, this is not just some kind of, it's not, a story that I'm watching on TV or a movie. It's real life. It could happen.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm going to say it again so I can try and pronounce it. Craniopagus parasiticus is extremely rare. It only occurs in about 2 to 3 out of 5 million births. So, yeah, extremely rare. Um, so it's described as, like I said, having a parasitic twin head with an undeveloped body attached to the head of a developed twin. And most of the babies that are born with this are born stillborn, or they are um, they will live, but it is a very slim chance they're going to live for very long.
Hmm.
They only live for hours or, maybe a couple years at most.
Hmm.
And a couple years is kind of like the maximum. Um, but the only available treatment still is surgery. So it is very risky because um, one child could die, or like I said, live a very short lifespan, from hours to years. So, and it's really sad and kind of horrifying too. I mean, in this situation, the twin that is the parasitic twin, um, it's thought of as the twin that is harming the other twin. So, in many cases, that might be the twin they think of that, has to go type of thing.
Yeah.
They don't, the other twin is kind of fully formed. And so that twin that is the parasitic one is literally a parasite and, kind of
Yeah.
trying to sustain itself off of the other twin. It's just, oh my gosh, I've never thought about this so much before in my life.
Yeah.
It's very
Do you
crazy.
remember the episode of the X-Files where they're at the like circus or the carnival, and then that guy has the twin that like can detach from him and it's like killing
It does
people?
sound familiar. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Fun
mean, I can't
fact,
remember. typically, but
This guy, his name's Enigma, is in that. Uh,
oh, really?
I saw him at CVS one time. Anyways.
Mm, all
Also,
right
I saw
then.
Nicolas Cage at CVS one time. That's a whole other story.
Yes.
Um, but no, yeah, that's really sad that uh that I mean just the whole situation is just sad and
Hmm.
you know, I don't know. I would say bizarre, but that doesn't feel quite right to say so. I don't know. Yeah.
Right, because I mean, how I just obviously neither you nor I has any experience with this type of
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, me personally, when I read about it, yeah, it freaks me out. Like not in the bad way per se, but just like, oh my God, how the fuck would you deal with this? Like
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's so different that it seems like it shouldn't be possible, and yet
Yeah.
it is possible. Because anomalies do occur in, I mean, that's what science is, that's what life is. But anyway, not to get too much into that, but so one case of it's like the most famous case of this type of condition was the two-headed boy of Bengal. He's the first recorded case and one of the most famous. He was born in 1783 in West Bengal, India, and he lived for only 4 years,
Mm.
excuse me, until he died of a cobra bite, of all things, in 1787. So that seems, very tragic. And I mean, his life was already had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of challenges, and then he dies by a cobra bite 4 years after he's alive. But his skull is actually in the collection of the University of Glasgow um, Huntarian. So I don't know if it's available to view or not. It didn't say that, but uh, if you Wikipedia him, you can see at least an artist rendering of what he might have looked like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and once again, it's just, he's got it's him with, his twin's head growing out of his skull. So, and only the head, no other body parts or anything. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, but he lived for 4 years. I mean, if that
And I mean,
cobra,
potentially he could have lived longer as well. Yeah.
exactly, that's what I was thinking. If the snake hadn't bitten him, um, who knows how much longer he may have lived. And, that was in the 1700s in India. So,
Mm.
um, pretty, pretty crazy. So yeah. Okay. One more little tangent with regard to, this whole thing. So I said that we just talked about craniopagus parasiticus, which was one of the conditions that Edward Mordrake may have had. Um, and then the other one that he may have had was deeprosopus. And deeprosopus is also known as craniofacial duplication. This one is, I don't want to say even more strange because they're both very strange. But if you look at this one just by itself, to me, well, is it more strange than I can't put a quantity on it? Okay. I mean, they're both bizarre. So, craniofacial duplication, um, extremely rare congenital disorder whereby parts like accessories or all of the face are duplicated on the head. So you and I have one pair of eyes, one nose, one mouth, uh, pair of ears, for instance. Most of us do. But in this type of defect, you might have two pairs of eyes, two mouths, two noses. Um,
Mm.
And yeah, exactly. And they're at different places on your face. They might not be right. It might not be a nose right next to your nose. It could be a nose like up here, or a nose underneath your mouth, or, something like that.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
um, it's not conjoined twinning. So it's not due to the fusion or incomplete separation of two embryos, but this happens as a result of abnormal activity by it's actually through a protein in your body.
Mm.
And you'll love what the protein was named after. The protein is called SHH. It's actually called Sonic the Hedgehog.
Mm. Hmm.
And I had to read that again. I was like, Sonic the Hedgehog, what? Yeah, it said the name is inspired by the character, obviously. And it's part of the idiosyncratic naming tradition in molecular biology research. So I guess when they find out something new, I don't know, they could be calling it like the Bart Simpson next, maybe, or something. Who
Mm.
knows? So I just found out that okay, that's how they do molecular biology research. Name it after Sonic the Hedgehog. That's a real thing. I mean,
Mm.
it's crazy.
Mm.
So
Oh, wonder if it's because like Sonic has like two tails or something.
it might be. I didn't get that far. I didn't actually look up that part, but that's not a bad guess. I would say that that's,
I mean, does
something.
he? I don't know. Now I have to relook at him.
Well, during embryonic development, Sonic the Hedgehog plays an important role in signaling craniofacial patterning. So, while the embryo is maturing and getting all these, you know, codes to do this or do that, um, the Sonic the Hedgehog is, you know, giving responses to some of these things. And it's responsible for some of the features being spread out wider or duplicated, like I said.
Mm.
In some instances, when they fed chickens protein with the like pellets of the Sonic the Hedgehog, and the chickens were born with duplicate beaks.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
So it's very bizarre. It also signals this Sonic the Hedgehog also signals healthy brain development. So if there's problems with that, that also could be due to
Mhm.
this gene, I guess we should call it. But it's said that humans with deep prosopis are usually stillborn or they live a very short life. So, like I was saying with the other condition, they live very short lives. And there was a little girl um, named Lali Singh, and she was born March 10th. She lived till May 10th, 2008. And she was born near Delhi, India. She was basically a modern case of having this condition, deep prosopis. She was born with two pairs of eyes, two noses, and two mouths, though she only had one pair of ears. She was seen actually as the reincarnation of the goddess Durga in her culture when she was born. So her parents, they didn't actually entirely view this as something that was bad, I guess, that,
Mhm.
the community kind of was like, oh, well, no, she's this reincarnation of this goddess. Um, and that was because Durga is sometimes depicted with many limbs and eyes.
Mhm.
So I was, I didn't do a whole lot of research, but I was just kind of skimming some of it. And it said that the parents, um, it's not that they didn't want her to you know, be able to thrive and live a full life, but they weren't interested in getting into a lot of the heavy medical procedures from what I could take away from it.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of just let her be and let her live. And unfortunately, she wasn't going to live very long. She did, like I said, she only lived a couple of months and then she died from a heart attack, which was how she wound up passing away. Um, but, the community and her parents, they obviously mourned her loss, but, they built like a temple in her honor and everything. I mean, um, they were really kind of struck by how much this whole thing affected them. So, that was one instance where they chose to look at it in more of a kind of spiritual way, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then moving even beyond humans, and this one, of course, for any cat lovers out there, this definitely, um, touched me. And, I don't know if you'll feel the same way, but there are animals that have uh, craniofacial duplication happen. It's still pretty rare, but cats that are born with this condition are known as Janus cats, after
Mm.
the Roman god Janus, who had two faces. So, I just was not even thinking about this. I mean, I know that it happens, but I was thinking, wow, cats, there's even like a whole name for it, Janus cats.
Mm.
And in 2006, in Millbury, Massachusetts, there was a 6-year-old male Janus cat who caught the public's eye. And the name of this cat, well, it was two cats. So Frank and Louie, but it's sometimes spelled Frankenlouis, like
Mm.
Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
So Frank and Louie was a ragdoll cat, and he had one brain, but he had two faces, two mouths, two noses, three blue eyes. He had one functional mouth, but the other um the other cat was born, or cat face, I guess, was born without a bottom jaw. There's only one esophagus and possibly only one trachea that were functional. So this was actually said to aid the survival of this cat. Um, there was, like I said, there are three eyes. So the middle eye, I guess kind of like a third eye is what I imagine it to look like, was non-functional and it didn't blink. Oh, if the other two eyes were closed on the cat, it just looked like that cat staring out at you, Frank and Louie.
Mm.
Kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, so in 2012, um, they were 12 years old. They made it to the Guinness Book of World Records as the longest surviving Janus cat on record. And in 2014, sadly, Frank and Louie died. They were 15 years old, and they had an aggressive form of cancer at that point. But
Mm.
I think 15 years old to live to, with it's a cat that has two faces, and
Yeah.
oh my God, that's such a long time. So,
Yeah.
and it was actually a really sweet story. Like um, the person that was the breeder of this cat, um, the cat was born and then they brought it to basically it was like a veterinary institute. And so one of the nurses who was caring for that cat brought it home with them
Mm.
and like tube fed it and, nursed it back to health and everything. So I just thought that was a really sweet story. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so like that's so crazy. So
I just
yeah,
looked
that's
him
my
up.
little.
He was actually pretty cute.
Oh,
15 is not that bad, honestly. or a
No,
cat.
no, not at all. I mean, especially when it seems like with the craniofacial duplication like this cat had, it seems that the animals are definitely living longer than the humans with this
Hmm.
type of condition. So that's really interesting too. But anyway, just a little tangent, but kind of, you know, very interesting information. Um, Back to my last thoughts about Edward Mordrake. So there was a photo that went viral in 2018, and it kind of brought a resurgence of proof for some people that Edward Mordrake did exist. But the only problem with that, like you were talking about before, it was not an actual human skull. Um, like I said, there have been no actual evidence of any kind of link, like
Hmm.
human link to Edward Mordrake. So in 2018, the photo that went viral, it was actually just an artist rendering that was made of paper mache. And the artist's name was Ewart Schindler. Um, so that was one that I guess it went about the rounds on Facebook, I think it was. And people were, thinking it was real, but no, it's not actually real, just paper mache. And then the one image before that that's been circulated around and more widely recognizable probably to anybody that, follows this kind of thing is that um the other image was the skull made of wax. So that was kind of the original one. And that was found to be from a museum in Germany, actually. So yeah, I mean, they're both artist renderings of Edward Mordrake, but they're not actual. They're taken as evidence by a lot of maybe fans, I guess you could say, but no,
Hmm.
that's not actual evidence, unfortunately. So the only thing that I could conclude is that we want to believe that, oh, okay, my cat always chimes in at the worst times.
Hmm.
We want to believe that Edward Mordrake existed, but like most enduring urban legends, it is likely he was just a fictional character. Or
Mm.
was he? Or was he? I don't know. I mean, there's no evidence, but yeah, he certainly sticks out. So yeah, that's why I wanted to delve into a little bit about um, what this legend was and who he
Yeah.
potentially could be. So yeah.
I don't know. I guess we will never know.
We won't ever know. We won't ever know. I mean, it's probably safe to say that yes, he definitely did not exist since we have no proof of it.
Yeah,
But um, we don't have a lot of things that we talk about. So
that's
I
true.
don't know. That's yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Um,
That was
yeah,
pretty crazy stuff there. I had known about
yeah.
Edward Mordrake, but I didn't know all of that. And definitely, I don't know. I liked that they brought him on to American Horror Story, but I was definitely disappointed by
Right?
uh, their portrayal of him. But that
Yeah,
kind of happens a lot with American Horror Story. There's been like
it
only a few
does.
seasons that I've even really got into and liked, you know? And like
Yeah.
some seasons, like I'll get like halfway into it, like through half the season, and then like halfway through, I'm like, wow, we like ran out of writers or something, you know?
I know.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I had to refresh my memory on the whole legend that they gave to him for the show,
Yeah.
which I feel like the legend that they set up for him, that legend, that story, that even had way more potential than
what they
what
did. Yeah.
actually wound up happening. Yeah,
It's
because
like he would show up on Halloween night, right?
yeah,
If they performed, they were like not supposed to perform on
they
Halloween night,
weren't
or
supposed to perform.
he would show
Yeah.
up, but he shows up anyways.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
He wants to come after somebody to include in his traveling, spiritual circus or whatever,
yeah.
but like, I mean, when I refreshed my memory, I was like, oh shit, that's what happens. I was like, that was stupid. Like, because he does, he winds up killing Twisty, the clown.
Mm,
And it was like, okay, I mean, yeah, I guess, but like, I don't know, just didn't make
mm.
a whole lot of sense, I feel.
I feel like they
But
also set up Twisty the clown. He was like the clown with like all the teeth and stuff, right? Like I feel
yeah,
like they also
yeah,
set him up to be a lot scarier than he
yeah.
actually was.
Hmm.
When the scariest
Yeah.
person of Freak Show was that rich boy who
Yes. Yes,
was
that guy.
completely terrifying, because
Yeah.
that type of person actually exists, a lot more than we'd like to think about.
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Um
that was the scariest part. Yeah. No, like it
yeah.
should have, I don't know, but yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, Edward, I mean, I'm glad actually that they brought a character like Edward Mordrake back into the
Mhm.
consciousness, but yeah, he definitely got robbed as a character. They could have
Yeah.
done way more with that spectral guest appearance, but
Yeah.
that's okay. Um, so yeah, just I don't know. And then like I said, when I came across his name again, I was like, oh yeah, oh wow, yeah, no, he was interesting. Yeah. So, and I think too why he got maybe singled out more than anyone else in that article is maybe because of the actual possible human
Yeah.
implications, like
Yeah.
that's more close to something that could actually happen. I don't know. It's just interesting to think about either way. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think believability is sometimes pretty scary. Because
Yeah.
like I don't know, a spider with a person head is not as frightening as a parasitic twin that is whispering to you. You know,
Right? Like,
it's just
oh my
it's a lot
God.
deeper,
Like,
a
oh
lot
my
deeper than
God.
that.
I
I don't know.
know. That's
But
crazy because yeah.
yeah. But yeah, but thank you for sharing that with us. That was pretty interesting. And yeah, let's wrap this one up. Uh,
Okay.
I'm gonna probably drink some more Charles Shaw here in a second. Um, but yeah, but thank you all for listening. Those who are
Yeah.
listening, please share this with your creepy friends. You have them. And if you don't, go make some. Go make some creepy friends. But please like, share, subscribe. Please let us know if you have any suggestions on stories. Please follow us on the social medias. You can find me at my weird little podcast on Instagram and on TikTok, Facebook, or find my Facebook. You can find me. You guys can figure it out. But I hope you all enjoy the rest of your night. Don't listen to the voices from the head behind your head, and stay spooky, everyone. Ooh.
Ooh.
All right, let me stop the